Hi guys. Great to be here. Compared to the other two guys, I'm not gonna focus so much on content, but rather on, you can say, a brand and how to create a longevity in a product that was invented, 80 years ago, and how to still stay relevant in a world that's changing ever faster. And I'm calling it entrepreneurship because I'm going to talk about our approach to how we can create radical innovation within Lego and still stay true to what is a core Lego experience. Just very shortly, the company is family-owned still today, and the family actually lives just about 50 meters from my office, so I can basically wave to the founders of the company. It's a one-brand company, which also means that our brand is also our product. So when people talk about Lego, they're actually talking about the product as well as the brand. And you can say the Lego movie that I bet a couple of you have seen is more or less like 2-hour-long commercial for the brand. But it's accepted because this is really the product and this is really the core of it. We've grown tremendously the last 5 to 6 years, more than 100%, which means that more than 60% of our employees today have been in the company for less than 3 years. It also means that we have to work a lot on keeping the culture and the DNA of the company, which is the cornerstone of our success. The mission of the company, and this is something that's quite important to us, because if you want to create longevity in a brand, you have to make sure that you have a mission that has longevity. Something that goes beyond growth and beyond, taking new markets. And for us, it's really about inspiring and developing the builders of tomorrow. And this, you can say, mission comes from the family that really wishes to enhance, kids' ability to be creative, to express themselves. And that's the key component we always start with when we invent something new is like, does we live up to this? Only the best is good enough is about the quality. We never compromise on quality with anything we launch. And that is a promise that, now the parents and grandparents are keeping us on. But it's all really about the brick. So this piece of plastic was invented in 58. And it's in fact the same brick that is still relevant today. And I'm just going to ask you, do a quick poll here. How many of you played with this brick when you were a child? It's got to be close to 100%. So how many of you have children, maybe not so many of you, but that are playing with this? So probably quite a few of you that has children. How many of you, and now be honest, are still playing with this? That's great. And it's actually really interesting because we have a huge community of adults that still has a very close relationship to the brick. And we are now on the 3rd generation. And what is really the key about this is what we call system in play. So this is not just building blocks. It's about a system, which means that everything that we create in the portfolio fits together. It means that, when you go home and pull out the old box of bricks from your grandparents' attic, it'll work with the latest new products that we are inventing and selling today. It also gives a promise to all the users that when you buy this product, it will last forever and it will stay, compliant with future products as well. It wasn't always like that, though, because back in the late 90s, early zeros, the company actually consulted some very skilled consultants about, how can we expand, our market share? How can we utilize the strong brand? And they said, well, you should do what your competitors are doing. You should build different types of products, not just the brick. The brick is actually really a little obsolete. It's a piece of plastic from 58. So the company did that. And in 2004, it almost went under. And only was saved by the owner who threw in 1.5 billion DKK of his own money to actually save the company that almost filed bankruptcy. And the thing that we learned there is that the reason for the success is really that consumers recognize the system, that this all fits together. So when we are inventing something new today, we always have to take a starting point in the brick. So the challenge that we have is, we need to make something new that's obviously Lego, which means consumers have to spot this a mile away and still say, this is a Lego product, but never seen before. And that's really the challenge that I have every day, saying how can we create something completely new? How can we reinvent the brand and the product, but still make it obviously Lego? And that was kind of the long intro to saying that's where we need some rebels, some people in the organization that are allowed to think differently. And this unit is called Future Lab. We're about 30 people, very diverse, 10 different nationalities, tasked with basically inventing the future of play. And you know, more than rebels, we're probably like mad scientists that are really allowed to experiment. We kind of say we venture into the future. We look at what's going on, what are the trends, where are kids' behavior changing, and then we go back and say, what can we do today that can actually learn, enable us to learn about these new things? And our approach is that, unlike our core business, where everything is big, so we have the approach called Big Bang. That means when we launch something new, it's big, it's global, it's very costly. We can't take many risks. We turn it around and say, everything big actually starts small. And we try to be the small startup within the big company that are allowed to completely change the way that we do things. And the way that we operate, unlike most other, you can say, business development units that makes PowerPoints and business cases, we also do that, but we actually make products and we launch them in the market. So every year we launch 3 or 4 new products in different selected markets around the world to test out completely new things, to see, is this still a Lego experience and will it hold? So we also learned a lot from Google and other companies in saying we have to move fast. We have to very quickly get something in the market, develop minimum viable products that only focuses on the key features that we need to really validate this new experience. And we also partner up with agile companies, external companies, realizing that in order to create something completely new, we don't have the capabilities internally. So we partner up with a lot of external companies, both big and small, to make them help. And often we collaborate about saying, what can we both learn as companies in developing a pilot that may not be a commercial, interesting success in the first run, but will teach both companies what this is all about. And finally, we cultivate what we call entrepreneurship. So becoming a small startup within the big company. And Lego, you could say, with such a strong focus on the brick and that system, doesn't leave much room to actually change the system or expand the system. The core engine is really designed to work very efficient in one way. So we are like a small separate company working within the big company and actually running these experiments. Now, the major challenge that I'm just going to talk to, which is a case that we have right now, is, of course, the challenge of digitalization. And kids are moving to digital platforms earlier, and by earlier, I mean really early. So the young generations that we call the digital natives, they're growing up with digital in a way that we cannot even imagine. And I mean, those of you that are parents will probably know that this is probably the best nanny ever invented. And I think also many parents are realizing now that, consumption of content is very easy on these devices, but it's actually also a challenge. Many parents are coming to us and say, our kids are leaving toys. Some are almost skipping them entirely and just consuming digital content on these platforms. And, there's a responsibility with that. They're coming to us saying, please, Lego, can't you make products that are as interesting as the digital content, which can unfortunately be very pacifying and still inspires creativity and also physical, tangible creativity. So that's the challenge that we have, and the parents are really expecting this to happen. And when we've been doing studies on this, especially with the parents and the moms out there, they're saying, we know we lost the battle on digital. We cannot keep digital products away from our kids. But what we are looking for is the lesser evil, or even possibly the good digital experience. So what would that look like, and how can that still allow our children to be children by playing with physical toys? So we took this challenge up, and we looked at past experiences that we had with digital. And we have the video games, which is a huge success, but it's basically this still has the same format of being quite passive, endorphin producing, adrenaline pumping type of digital content that parents are trying to steer a little away from, especially in the younger age. We also created Lego Universe. That was a major investment. We basically tried to do a big bang on digital, and we spent close to 1 billion Danish kroner on this project, and it failed miserably, unfortunately, about 3 to 4 years back. And the reason was that we didn't know anything about operating a business model around this. The business model was wrong. Our own internal processes and system was wrong. The amount of content we needed to create constantly to keep users engaged on a digital play world simply killed the business case entirely. So we almost like gave up. And actually the company pretty much say, okay, we shouldn't do digital, let's stick to the physical product. But that's when we were a couple of people internally in the company saying, well, there was a couple of other guys that had that same thinking, because Kodak actually had the issue that if they were to move to digital cameras, that would kill their, film business. That was really the biggest part of their business. And even though Kodak owned all the patents on digital cameras, they more or less skipped that part, and they went bankrupt like a couple of years back, and is now reduced to, I think, an online printing service somewhere. So we said, well, that's where we need those rebels. That's where we need a unit that is able to, in a very small scale and very fast, to experiment on a number of different parameters. Let's not go on that, let's do it big, let's do it global, but really small, nimble, fast, and in many different ways. So we took a look at how technology has been developing. And Lego was actually very strong in the digital around, the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But the challenge was, when children were to use a digital, physical product together with a digital component, it was not very seamless. A PC back then was typically in dad's study on his desk, and you would need your bricks up there, and you had a keyboard, you had a mouse, and it just didn't work. And we actually, Lego was one of the, I think we had the only company in Europe that owned a computer, one of the first computers. We bought that one, and I think it was a 5 in the world at that time. And so we were really ahead, and we spent billions on it. That was part of maybe also why we were challenged at the early zeros. So it traumatized it a little bit. But now what we've seen, these devices are completely different. They're really becoming now the kids' primary platform for play. So we looked at it at how did we develop? This was back in '58, and screens looked like this when we invented the brick. And what technologies have we actually? When have we really revived ourselves into some new things? And we actually invented the wheel back in the '70s. Which was a major thing for the portfolio because it allowed vehicles in the portfolio, and now there are vehicles in 70% of all our products. And we actually, right now, we are the biggest tire manufacturer in the world. So it's not a small operation, in fact. The second thing was the minifigure, which opened up role play into our portfolio. And right now, you can say 80% of our revenue are driven by play themes that has the minifigure as a key element. So that's probably our most recent success is based on that. And actually, right now, we are closing in on having more minifigures than people in the world. So they are soon going to be taking over, we count on. Then we also experiment with robots. And it was an interesting project, but not a commercial success. It made a lot of, you can say, good PR stories, etc. We worked 10 years with MIT Media Lab on this one. But that is not really the solution. So what we kind of said to ourselves, well, it really comes down to the brick, the core brick. Why don't we take a starting point in that, core red 2x4 brick and see how would that work together with these new devices? So we said, okay, let's take the most basic bricks we have and see if we can create an experience that works with these new devices. And Minecraft obviously inspired us heavily in kind of and as Notch is saying, Minecraft is digital Lego, and that's how he defines it. And obviously, we would only wish we had invented it. But now we're going to build on the learning and insights that they created around digital creativity. So inspired from Minecraft and other things, we went ahead and said, let's create the first experiences. And the first big major pilot that we actually launched last week in the US is called Lego Fusion. And Lego Fusion is really, it's a game, but it's also free open creativity. And we wanted to go back to the core of what a Lego experience is. So in this product, there are no building instructions. We said, what actually really worked originally was no building instructions. It was this free open creativity. So how can we combine, the latest new app type of games that are really popular with kids with the most basic open creative brick experience that has worked since '58. And that is this an example of, so very briefly, in this game it's a mix between civilizations and Sims. You need to build a city and populate it with people and keep them happy. But in order to build houses, you need to actually build them physically with your bricks. And you build only the facade and you put it on this scanning mat. And this actually allows the camera on the device to see specifically what did you build. So it reads the colors, the shapes, and everything. And once it captures it, it makes it into a three-dimensional house within the game that you can actually walk into, and you can buy things in there. So if you build a bakery, you can go in and buy bread and distribute that to your inhabitants, etc. And that's one example, but it's completely open and free. We are not telling the kids how to build these houses. They are designing them themselves. So the child becomes the designer of their own house, but with all the game mechanics that they're really into, that really drives their engagement. So we're really trying to mix the best of these two worlds, still keeping it highly creative and true to the core Lego experience. Now, real quick, how we made it. We have obviously made prototypes of this. We used PopApp and other applications to very quickly prototype and experiment with kids. We've done numbers of tests with children. We did a huge foundational study to understand kids' behavior around digital experiences, how they talk about it, how they navigate with it, how they both act socially around it. And then we created loads of prototypes that we tested with kids. And this is the total portfolio that's launched only in the US, only with one customer. Again, to limit it, to limit the investment and the exposure. If this fails, we can quickly withdraw it, and only a part of the world really heard about it. And then, of course, it's about iterating and learning. So summing up the key challenges with this approach, and it's like, you could say you can do this in a company, but also in a system. Like, how do you change a system from within? And the first thing is to prove that something new needs to happen. And our experience is you really need to launch it. The best way to prove it is actually launching something, making it fast, getting it out there, seeing it, making it real. The second is to internalize it. Once you've proven the case, you need the rest of the organization to come behind you. And that's where we learned if we are staying true to what is the core DNA in what we create, then we will get the organization to back us up when we come with something new. And I think many development units in companies are fighting with this because they invent something new and it might be great with consumers, but the company rejects it as being not, something relevant, not something we should do. And finally, it's scaling it. And that's really about when we make these pilots, we make sure that all the different processes and the key stakeholders in our organization is learning as long as we are, so that we are able to scale it inside the company, even though we invented it as a separate small company outside. Now, the final bit of inspiration or advice is to say, yes, go ahead, be a rebel, but be diplomatic about it. So one of the key things we learned is it's easy to set things on fire. It's easy to rebel. It's really hard to get everyone to follow you afterwards when you actually invented the new golden shoe. So he has like the top 5 advice on being a diplomatic rebel. And the first one is to realize that people will hate your project. Accept it, and they really will. I mean, you will feel like people are walking around and ready to kill it as soon as you make a mistake. The other is to understand the rules that you're breaking. And you will have to break a lot of rules internally. But if you understand who you're stepping on and why these rules were invented, it'll make it easier to persuade these people to allow it. Third one is to build a tribe. And that means you need to slowly get more and more people behind you. First, your closest peers, but then really getting stakeholders to back you up and follow you in this project. And to do that, you need to write a lot of love letters. And by that, we mean you really have to be very diplomatic, and you have to communicate a lot with your stakeholders and constantly engage with them in understanding why you're doing this. And the final, obviously, is to make people shine. So when we are successful with these things, make sure that all the folks that help you actually are benefiting from it. Then they'll help you again the second time around. That was all I had for you guys. Thank you.